Welcome to Hard Talk. I'm Sean Lay. The true father of metal, the king of the heavy riff. His band is topping the charts again after 43 years. Black Sabbath is better known for the antics of on-off lead singer Ozzy Osbourne than the skills of guitarist Tony Iommi. But Iommi is the one original member of the band to have stayed the course. This despite missing fingertips that can make playing painful, the rock and roll lifestyle lived to the full, and now cancer. Still recording and touring around his treatment. What keeps him playing? Tony Iommi, welcome to Hard Talk.
Thank you, Sean.
How does it feel to be back on top again after all these years?
Fantastic. I mean, it's to have a number one all over the world. Just what can you say? It's just brilliant.
You even managed to knock Rod Stewart off the top spot.
Apparently so, yes.
You grew up in Aston, which is part of Birmingham, England's second city, at a time when it wasn't a particularly fashionable place, old industrial city. I wondered how much you think Birmingham influenced what became Black Sabbath.
I think a lot, really, from where we came from is the background of our music, with the industrial side of it, and being brought up around, you know, it was gang infested and not particularly very nice. And I think our thing was we wanted to get out, but you're trapped, really. And I think music was the way for us to be able to get out.
It eventually did get you out, but for some time you were there, you were practicing, you were learning your trade. We often think the 60s was the swinging time, the time of flower power, the summer of love. Much of that in Aston when you were growing up?
I don't think so. No, I mean, we first saw that when we started touring, really, all the flower power stuff.
Was there a sense in which your music, your style, was a bit of reaction to all of that peace and love stuff?
Yes, because everybody was talking about all the nice things, and we sort of came out talking about the things that really are happening, you know, in the world. The wars and, you know, the other side of life, really.
Not a particularly cheerful perspective, not in a sense a cheerful message to put out. Did it reflect how you felt about your life at that stage?
I think so. I mean, Geezer was responsible for most of the bass player was responsible for most of the lyrics. I did the music side, so I don't take the blame for that.
Even so, you were a part of this whole kind of vibe and the whole scary music thing. I think Ozzy Osbourne, your vocalist, says it was you who came up with the idea of writing scary music because you used to practice across the road from a cinema showing horror films.
That's right. Well, we used to, I particularly, and Geezer, the bass player, we really liked horror films, and it was just that feeling you got of being frightened as such. And I thought it would be good to be able to do that, because that really excited me, and to do that in music would have been, for me, what we did, you know, it was great. I really liked to have that sort of same feeling from the music.
And yet it nearly didn't happen at all. Tell me about the accident you had.
Well, the accident happened before Black Sabbath, really, and it was, I'd just been offered this job with this band to go to Germany, and
your way out was there.
Oh yeah, absolutely, yeah. And I thought, this is great, and I really liked playing with them. But so my mother says, you've got to go and finish off. Well, what happened? I went to work, and I worked in a sheet metal factory, and I did welding. And so somebody used to cut the metal and then send it down to me, and I'd weld it. And the one day this person didn't come in, and so they put me on the machine, and I'd never worked this machine ever. And the thing came down on my hand, and as I pulled my hand back, it just took the ends of the fingers off. But what happened in before that, I'm sorry, I went home for lunch, and I said to my mother, I'm not going back into work today. You know, I'm going to stop. And she went, you go back in and you make sure you finish off your day. So I did, and that's what happened.
She must have felt quite bad about that.
Well, she probably did, but it's really strange how things happen like that, It's a weird thing to happen. If I hadn't have gone, I don't know what would have happened if my style would have changed, or because it made me create a style of playing.
Explain that. I mean, in a sense, it's almost serendipity. I mean, literally a happy accident.
It was, yeah, because it made me invent a way of playing. Because I had to make these caps for my fingers. I went to the hospital and they said, "You might as well give up," basically. And I couldn't accept that. I thought, well, there must be a way. And the manager of the firm that I worked for brought me a record round. It was Django Reinhardt. And he said, "Can I play this record?" I went, "Oh, no, I'm not interested," because I didn't feel exactly up for it. And he said, "Just listen to it." And so I did. I said, "Yeah, that's really great." And he said, "Well, this guy plays with two fingers." And it really inspired me to sort of to do it. And so I made some tips myself out of a fairy liquid bottle. So I melted down.
That's kind of washing up thing that lots of people would have in their kitchen in England.
That's right. And so I melted it down into a ball, got a hot soldering iron and made a hole in it until it fit on the finger. And then just sat there forever, just rubbing it down to make a shape of a finger. And then I had to find something that I could touch the string with that would bend the strings. And so I tried different materials, and at the end of the day I came up with a leather that would grip the string. And I glued that. I'm very primitive Heath Robinson thing, but it worked.
It certainly does. I mean, if you listen to what some of your fellow musicians have said about the playing style that's resulted, the king of the heavy riff, James Hetfield of Metallica. Without Tony, heavy metal wouldn't exist, says Eddie Van Halen. He took rock and roll and turned it into heavy metal. I mean, when you topped the poll of riff lords in Metal Hammer magazine, they praised your highly distinctive style of fretmanship, economical yet crushingly effective. Let's hear what they were talking about. One of your riffs from the first track on the new album, it's called End of the Beginning. What makes that kind of playing special, distinctive, do you think?
I think for me, because I have the tips, it made me create it. Because I used to be able to play proper chords and just the way everybody else plays, conventional way, but I had to come up with a different way altogether because I just couldn't play the same way. So I had to work on vibrato, I had to work on how hard to press on the strings, because obviously I couldn't feel anything apart from pain. You couldn't feel how much you bend in the string like you could with your finger. There's no feel in there.
And even today, it's the same?
Oh, even today, it's still the same. And I still use tips that obviously they're made for me now.
You could afford it.
Well, yeah, but I still have to put leather on. I've got an old jacket from the 60s that I cut up. It was a full jacket. Now it's about that big now, and I use them and it lasts probably for 3 weeks, and then have to put a new piece on.
Not everyone is impressed by heavy metal music. You'd know that yourself. John Pirelli's writing about heavy metal in the New York Times at the end of the 80s. He said, for all its pervasiveness, and it really has been everywhere, and it's inspired a lot of other kinds of music, the bulk of the music is, he says, stylised and formulaic, a succession of reverberating guitar chords, macho boasts, speed demon solos, and fusillades of drums. It's a bit unimaginative.
What can I say to that?
Well, what do you say to it?
I don't know. I don't know what to answer that, really. I mean, it's metal, or I don't class ourselves as heavy metal. I know a lot of people do. We've always come from the hard rock-based thing. So what we play is power, and yeah, you try and make a feeling into it and a mood, and create, like you, back to the horror film, to create some kind of vibe from it.
It wasn't just the music, was it, with Black Sabbath in the early days? There's a whole kind of distinctive style, and I suppose in some ways that's what unnerves people about the music, that they feel that in a sense it exploits people, that it exploits their emotions, that it tries to build that atmosphere, and it's actually a bit, in that sense, unhealthy for people.
I don't think it is. I mean, we've had a lot of it depends on how far you go with and what you call heavy metal and what bands you're on about. But what we do, we've had a lot of letters over the years from people who said, "Thank God for your music. You know, you've helped me tremendously through these hard times," because they've read into the lyrics and the feel of the songs. And it has genuinely helped people. I know it seems odd, but it has.
And yet you performed in a way that sort of played up this satanic image. You're not a cultist. You were never into that.
Not at all. We dabbled in it in the early days because we were young and, you know, you're inquisitive, really. But as far as any kind, we never sacrificed anybody on stage or anything like that. The image was built up basically from when we did the first album. The record company did the album cover, and that's what done it. The inside of the cover was upside down cross, and so that sort of started everybody off. And
you got your cross on today the right way up. But
yes, it's always the right way up.
I mean, I wonder if that's a kind of makes it all a bit disingenuous, really, the idea of being from the dark side. It was a sort of a cheap thrill for the audience.
No, we believe in what we did, what we play, and everything we play is we have to feel it and believe in it. The audience, you can only judge by we've been here for 45 years. I mean, you answer it.
What about the Devil's Interval? Tell me about that, the diminished fifth.
Well, that again was just something I liked. I never even thought of it. I never even knew about it, to be honest, when I first did it. And then later on, oh, you shouldn't be playing those notes. Why? I mean, I didn't understand all that. I mean, we were 19 years old, you know.
You need to explain that, I think, for people watching. What was behind that? What was the sound? And
well,
what
Black Sabbath was the first song that had that in. And that was apparently the notes you never use, which we did. But I never knew that. And to me, it was creating music, and that's all I do is create music. I don't try and create anything to destroy people or to upset anybody. And as I say, it's helped more people than they say supposedly we're Satanists and stuff. We're certainly not.
But these things have consequences, don't they? I mean, for some quite baleful consequences. In the autobiography you wrote, you talk about a case of a nurse who killed herself, and Paranoid was playing on the turntable.
That's right, yeah.
Beside her.
That's right. And we never know what that reason was. You know, there's always going to be something, isn't there? There's always going to be something they'll find.
Does it bother you?
Well, you hate to hear anybody that's killed themselves. That's not saying it was us. It was saying they'd found Paranoid on the turntable.
Ozzy was quoted back in 2004 as saying, "You remember that guy from New York, Son of Sam, who was killing all the chicks? When they got into his apartment, he supposedly had the lyrics to After Forever written on his wall. I thought, are we going too far?" Did you?
No, I never did. I mean, the lyrics are what happens in the world, you know. The geezer, I mean, you'd have to talk to him, because I don't do that. I do all the music. But what Geezer would write about was what he'd seen and what he felt and what we were going through, our lives, the people we were bumping into and the type of people and the things we were seeing.
You say, obviously, the lyrics he wrote, but you were part of that. You were part of the atmosphere, part of building that whole environment, the image, the sound, of course, which was so important to it. That creates some responsibility, doesn't it?
I think if you're looking into it that deep, yeah. I mean, we looked on it as this is music, and the lyrics were written because when Geezer said to me that he has to write powerful lyrics to go with the powerful music.
So it was your fault, not his.
Well, probably my fault then.
You got your route out of Aston. Quite a lifestyle in the 70s, by all accounts, certainly what you've written. I mean, it sounds like, you know, you could have what you wanted, whether it was Rolls Royces, Lamborghinis, women, drugs. Quite a lifestyle. Is it a lifestyle you look back on with affection or regret?
I can't change it, but there's certain things you think, oh, you know, you could have done it in a different way.
What things?
Well, a lot of the stuff. I mean,
give me some examples.
the drug side of it, for instance. I mean, if I'd have known what I know now, I certainly wouldn't have dabbled to that extent. I don't think any of us would.
Ozzy Osbourne has described cocaine as the cancer of the band.
Yeah, it was, absolutely.
How much damage do you think it did to you longer term?
As far as the band was concerned, I think it done a lot of damage. Initially, we thought it was great and we thought it was helping us create. But at the end of the day, when it came to a point where we had to replace Ozzy, we were in a bad way, and he was certainly in a bad way, and we had to fire him, which was awful.
Did you do it face to face?
Well, actually, the drummer did it. He told him. We were going to tell him altogether, but Bill stepped in and told him without us. And it was a terrible thing to do. But Ozzy got to a stage where he wasn't into it anymore, and he was doing too much of everything. And we all were doing stuff, but he was worse than what we were. He was a few stages ahead of us.
What were you doing?
What was I doing? I was doing cocaine and Quaaludes and the stuff around at that time. But that was about far, no acid or anything like that.
But you did some fairly, I mean, there were things that I suppose started off as practical jokes that probably, now you look back, don't look like practical jokes. I mean, spraying one of your fellow band members gold, which
Yes.
could have killed him.
Yes, well,
Leaving one of your colleagues with third-degree burns on his legs after setting light to his feet.
the same guy. Bill was, the drummer, was the one that we sort of picked on, and he liked it, to be honest. I mean, if you didn't play him up that day, you go, is something wrong? You know, have I done? No, why? Well, you haven't picked on me today, and this is not just me, everybody.
It's very different, though, from the sort of kind of practical jokes and picking on you would have done in, you know, the schoolyard together back in Birmingham when you were kids. I mean, it's on a different league,
Yes, it got
different
silly.
scale.
It got really silly. I mean, when we sprayed him with gold, it was. We were laughing at the time, but we didn't realise how silly that was. You know.
Do you think the drugs made you all lose a perspective in the end?
Probably, yeah. Yeah, I think it does in the end. You do get sort of taken over with it, you know, and it depends on what you do as well.
Does it kind of make you want to sort of reach out to some of the younger musicians now and say, if you knew what I knew, you really wouldn't be touching this stuff?
Yeah, but I mean, to do that, it's like what my parents would say to me, or your parents. You do have to experience these certain things sometimes, you know. And however much I said, don't do this, or you shouldn't do that, are they going to do it? I don't know.
Do you think you were setting a bad example to your fans, to the people who were buying your music? And they were still buying it, even though half the time you were composing this stuff off your face.
No, I don't think we were setting a bad example at all. We did it, whatever we done was a personal thing for us. We didn't share it with anybody or give anybody stuff. We did it at that time. For us, it was experimenting, it was trying stuff, you know. We came into a world of music, and then once we hit America, I mean, I never done anything until we got to America, and then it sort of suddenly went berserk.
You've talked about firing Ozzy Osbourne, which you did at the end of the 70s. He's obviously come back to the band now after a long period, obviously, when you weren't playing together, performing together. At one point, I think you were in a dispute, a legal action over the ownership of the name Black Sabbath. I mean, you said as a kid he was a real pain at school. Get the impression it's been a kind of quite complicated relationship.
Well, at school, the school we went to was quite a tough school, and Ozzy was in a year younger than me. And it was always the case, when I first went to that school, you were picked on by the elders. It's just the way it was, you know.
So you picked on him because he was a bit younger?
Well, we didn't actually pick. He was a pain. I mean, he was a nuisance. And I mean, he's funny now when we see it, but at the time then he was. And so you'd sort of give him a clip round the ear hole, you know.
But that pain years later, that annoying quality, actually did you some favours when you had a little pain that you weren't thinking of doing much about.
What little
I'm
pain
talking
was
about the subsequent diagnosis a couple of years ago.
Yeah. That knocked me for 6 when I found that out, yeah, when I found I got cancer.
But was it Ozzy who kind of made you go and get it checked up?
It was, well, we were working at Ozzy's house in Beverly Hills and started writing the album. And I was getting these pains in my groin. And he said, you ought to go. He said, you don't look very well. I said, well, I don't feel very well. And I told him what had happened. He said, you should go and get that checked out. He says, should we organise a doctor? I went, oh, no, I'll sort it out. And so I did. I saw a doctor in Los Angeles, and they wanted to cut some off and see, see what it was.
And when they told you?
Well, they told me in England. I came back to England, and I went to the hospital because I had a prostate problem as well. So I had that operated on. And while they were doing that, or cutting that down, he said, I'll take that lump out. And then he told me, he said, it's a good news, and the good news is your prostate's really good. I went, oh, great. He said, but we have found lymphoma in the lump. And I thought, oh, no. And it was sort of, oh, no, what is lymphoma? I sort of knew, but I wanted to hear it, really.
And you'd, of course, only a year before lost Ronnie Dio, who'd been one of Ozzy's replacements as vocalist on Black Sabbath, to stomach cancer.
Stomach cancer, yeah.
Did you think you were going the same way?
I did, absolutely, because we were on stage and Ronnie was complaining about his stomach. And I'm saying to him, you ought to go and see a doctor, you ought to get that sorted out. He's going, yeah, I will when we finish the tour. And of course, it was too late for him. By the time he'd gone, it had spread.
Do you think that the cancer had an effect bringing the band together, maybe playing a part in this new album?
I think it brought us closer than we ever have, because you become, it's sort of suddenly a reality of what could happen, And I think everybody pulled together. They all pulled around me. I must say they were great. They were brilliant.
And you've had to fit your recording and your touring around continued treatment?
I've had to do it around the treatment. I was, well, even when we were writing, everybody came to England to work at my house because I couldn't travel anywhere because I was having treatment every day.
How are you now?
I'm all right. I'm not so bad. I have good days and bad days, like, anybody with this, you get tired. And you get aches and pains like you would anyway. But yeah, it's fine. The people at the hospital have been fantastic, I must say. You
said that, to be honest, I just maintain my sound now in an interview you did a few months ago. Have you kind of lost the edge, perhaps? Are other things now more important in life to you than playing, than music? I think staying alive is more important to me, absolutely, and my family. Because that's become sort of a thing up front now that I have to, of course, think about. Music will never die in my mind. I love playing it. I think it's helped me get through this as well with the band, being able to work and do things and work through it. Because a lot of people thought I wouldn't be able to work through it, including me. But we did. And where next?
Where next is we tour the States for 2 months, and then I come back, have another infusion, another hospital thing, which knocks me about for a couple of weeks. And then after that, South America. Come back, another treatment. After that, Europe and England. So the rock and roll lifestyle is one thing you can live with and flourish with? I hope so. I hope so. Tony Iommi of Black Sabbath, thanks very much for talking to us on Hard Talk. Thank you very much.